Yo, what is up guys? Welcome to another Wild Rift guide. Today I'll be talking about Corki. I'll be talking about Corki's abilities and I'll be giving you some tips and tricks on how to play him effectively in Wild Rift as he has some crazy ways of destroying the enemy. I will also show you a good beginner build with some runes. If you want to see more of this, then make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's start with the abilities. Corki's passive makes his basic attacks deal a lot of magic damage. However, you're still supposed to build attack damage as he will deal more damage that way. Corki is a champion that should be playing in the attack damage role or dragon lane as they say in Wild Rift, but you can also flex him into the mid lane. Another part of his passive is that a package will spawn 4 minutes into the game that Corki can pick up at the base, which will grant him some bonuses. And when you reach 4 minutes after you pick up a package, another package is gonna arrive every 100 seconds. The package gives Corki 35% bonus movement speed when he has it on him, and the package also buffs his second ability. I'll be talking more about that later on in the video, and I will tell you how you can perfectly utilize this buff on the second ability. Corki's first ability is just a bomb that he can throw at a certain location. You will reveal enemies that get hit by the bomb and you will also damage them. This is a great poking ability, but it is also good to cut off enemies that are trying to run away from you. There's also another thing that's amazing about this ability, but I'll talk about it later on in the video when I give you the tips and tricks. So his second ability is a dash that leaves behind a flaming zone, which will deal damage to the enemy if they step into it. When you pick up the package, you know, the package that I was talking about with your passive, your next dash will be empowered. So the way that it is empowered is that first of all, you get extra range. Second of all, you will knock away enemies in your path, and you will also become unstoppable, so no CC can stop you from dashing. The flaming zone of the buff dash also deals more damage, and it lasts 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds only, and it also slows the enemy when they're walking into it. This ability is amazing when you're fighting in a choke point, as you can just hit all the enemies with it and create a flaming zone that slows and damages all the enemies. Corki's third ability is a Gatling gun. This ability is an auto-aim ability, unlike the PC version of League of Legends. You can just click on this ability and it will damage all enemies in front of you, and if the enemy tries to avoid it by, like, for example, walking around you, it will actually follow them and it will continue hitting them. The Gatling gun also shreds armor and magic resist, so it is a great ability against front lines. I'll be talking more about why this is such an amazing ability later on in the video, where I'll be giving tips and tricks about Corki. So this ability is amazing if, for example, an enemy tank is diving your team, as you can shred some of his armor and his magic resist, thus making him more vulnerable to damage. By the way, you can still basic attack the enemy while casting the Gatling gun. So Corki's ultimate is a rocket. Corki can store up to 6 rockets, and these rockets deal damage to the enemy, and every third rocket is buffed. You can see how many rockets you have under your health bar, like you can see the yellow bar and the red bar, and the red thing is the buffed rocket, so you know when you have a buffed rocket. And the way that the rocket is buffed is that it shoots a little further, it also deals more damage, like significantly more damage, and it explodes in a larger radius. Now I'll be giving some tips and tricks about Corki. So when you're playing against a champion with no dashes at all, like in a 1v1 situation in lane, try to stay near walls that you can dash over. This is good because you can use your dash to escape over a wall if necessary. And another thing is that you should try to get your package as fast as possible when it spawns in your base, because it gives you great movement speed and it buffs your second ability, so you should utilize it as much as you can in a game. Corki has some great power spikes, and the first one that I want to talk about is when you get the item that's called Sheen. This item will cause your basic attacks after using an ability to deal bonus physical damage. This is great because your abilities don't have a long cooldown on Corki, so you can win early fights if you utilize this item well. So you have to use an ability and hit the enemy and then go back. Basically like poking them, like, you know, hit an ability, basic attack, go back. Hit an ability, basic attack, go back. And the next huge power spike is when you get Trinity Force. This is pretty much like the buffed variant of Sheen. Trinity Force is an amazing item on Corki and it makes him super strong. So once you get that item, especially if the enemy doesn't have a tier 3 item yet, you have to take fights, because you will almost guaranteed win unless you make some terrible misplay. Another important thing to note on Corki is that you should really utilize Corki's third ability well in fights. The Gatling gun shreds armor and magic resist, and you shouldn't take this lightly. Like, don't ignore this ability, you know, because it doesn't actually do a lot of damage, but it's all about the armor shred and the magic resist shred. So this ability can literally turn a whole fight around, because like for example, if you hit all like 3 enemy frontliners for a few seconds with your Gatling gun, you will shred a lot of their armor and magic resist, and your team will do way more damage to them. Maybe they can even burst them down because you'll just shred through everything. Now I'll be showing you a great build that you can start with on Corki. I recommend you to start with Trinity Force. This item is just really good on Corki, and when you get the shield item, which builds into the Trinity Force of course, you will have an early power spike as well. After that you go for Mana Moon, and then it's honestly situational. Like if you have no idea what to build, then just follow this order, but you really have to look at the enemy team to really decide what to build. I don't recommend you to go for Armor Pierce on Corki, because you can already pierce armor with your third ability, so you just build damage instead. So there are some situations where you can still go for Armor Pierce. So for example, if the enemy has like 3 tanks or even 2 tanks that have that really stacked armor, then you can actually go for like Mortal Reminder. Or if you're playing against a champion that has a lot of heals like Nasus or what is that champion called? Dr. Mundo, you know, when they have a lot of heals, then you can also get a Mortal Reminder. So yeah, that was it for the Corki guide. I made more Wild Rift champion guides, and if you want to see more, then check out the playlist in the description. I will see you all in the next Wild Rift video. Bye bye.